I want to chat about the impact of digital technology in the classroom. Imagine a line across your page representing the timeline of one of your lessons. What are the elements that would make up the sequence of your average lesson? For me, the students come in, I set some context and explain what they're doing and why. I explain the content for the day, give some specific instructions about what they need to do, and then have them working independently while I move around the room and take specific questions. Looking at the line in front of you, I want you now to imagine which parts your students would say are most valuable to their learning. There's no right or wrong answer here. It depends on your students and on you as a teacher. But when I thought about it, based on the conversation and success I'd seen with my students, I decided that the most mutually beneficial time in the classroom for each student is when I'm able to interact with and engage with them one-on-one to address their specific questions. I started to reflect on this, thinking that if I could, it would be great to include more of what seems to be effective in my classes. Of course, this caused a problem, because while some parts of my lesson may not have been as effective in my reflection, they were still important in scaffolding the learning that took place. When I reflected with my students, what I learned was that they liked talking to me, and that things made more sense one-on-one than when I tried to talk to the whole group, and that they would like their learning to be more personalised to them. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, right, of course it would be good to teach students on a more personal level. We've been saying that for years. But we have to work within what we have. We can't spend large bursts of time with each student in a class of 30. We don't have the resources. That's what my teacher used to say, and I couldn't seem to get my head around this problem either. That's until I thought about that word, resources. And I realised that my teacher's resources when I was young were limited to some old chalk, perhaps a metre ruler and a can of tonic water. But with the rise of technology since that time, there's greater possibilities. Now at this point you're probably thinking I'm going to say to give every student an iPad and a set of headphones and you'll never have to stand again. But I think that's a misconception. Another misconception that you might have is that we should all plug ourselves into a giant mainframe with all of our students so that teaching and learning becomes completely automated, which it makes me think of that race, the Borg from Star Trek. No, I don't think these things are the answer at all. We can't just throw technology at students. We shouldn't be trying to use technology to make our job or the student's job easier. That's never been a goal. You know, when I think about technology, I think about personality. I think about things like screen desktops. Have you ever seen two screen desktops that are the same in a classroom? What about phones? You pick your colours, you pick your apps, and you go with what works for you. And about word processors, email, or what about even browsers? When I think of technology, I think about the fact that there are millions of devices out there designed to adapt to the personal needs of an entire population. It's not about uniformity or mandate. It's about personal preference. I realised at this stage that I'd been thinking about how I could make my classroom more digital, when really the problem was about how I could make my classroom more personal. How could I make my classroom adaptable to the personalities of the people within? Now I'll jump ahead and offer you a spoiler. There is no miracle answer, and there's certainly no one-step solution. But I don't think that's what digital technology is about either. It's about learning new skills and then using them where you can to make your classroom more adaptable. Here's what I did. I looked at my timeline from before and made a challenge to add more blue. I looked at each of the other colours. I knew that all of them were important, so I wasn't looking to cut. I just wanted to trim. I ended up deciding on my explanations. When I explain concepts that are difficult to the class, I know that many students don't get it until I've clarified it later in the lesson. So this was an area that I need spending more time on, even though the effect wasn't as high. I decided that I would try to shave off some minutes from my explanation. And to avoid getting sidetracked or stuck on questions, I recorded my explanation of each lesson in a 5-minute video on my laptop. I knew that usually it would take me longer to deliver the information in class, so I worked on refining the explanation to be as clear and direct as possible, with 5 minutes as a really strict limit. By cutting my explanation now by close to 10 minutes, I could redistribute my time in the class so I could answer more individual questions. The new arrangement that meant that by reducing one element in my class, I could increase another. Success. Case closed. Or at least that's what I thought. When I started the class, I played the video and all of a sudden, I realised that I wasn't doing anything. While they were watching the video, I was free to wander the class. I could manage distraction and behaviour, and the class seemed like their eyes were fixed on the screen. Well, that was unexpected. But also, once I put the videos up, I found that some students wanted to watch them again, or pause them at some points, and asked if this was allowed. I said fine, and while these students took extra time pulling apart my explanation, I was able to direct the rest of the class on what to do, and then come back to this smaller group later to break down my instructions. There was also another surprise. Some students asked if they could watch the videos before they came to class. I didn't really know what they were on about, but I said this was fine. And in the next lesson, we spent the first 5 minutes talking about the content that they'd already seen, while the rest of the class watched the next explanation video. Now look, I don't pretend to be an expert, and other than installing a free app on my laptop, I've hardly used any great technical knowledge in this story. But by making a small amount of time before my class available to film my explanation of the lesson's content, I was able to create a more flexible and adaptable framework which gave me more time to work specifically with students. The thing that I really liked about the final outcome was the fact that the sequence of the class and distribution of elements was different for each student, making the whole experience more personal. Now look, this worked for my class, but it's not an answer for everyone. What I want this video to do for you is to now make you think about what you find most effective in your classroom, and then to maybe consider some ways that you could streamline some of the less effective elements in your teaching to create greater opportunities to play your strengths. Now this is where I see digital technology coming in as a means of supporting and enhancing your teaching so that everyone benefits.